land conservation, land management, and our natural resources. So I pushed very hard. Some of you may know this, some of you may not. I pushed very hard to recreate and reestablish the Land Committee because I think it's critical to the success of this county's beauty and preservation of natural open spaces we need. So as far as I'm concerned, y'all are probably the most important committee. Some may say PZA is, but I say that this committee is to help us maintain the quality of life that we all either have stayed here if we were born here or moved here and stayed here. I came in 1984, by the way, so I feel like I'm almost a native, but not quite. So I want to just welcome everyone, thank you for your service, and encourage you to press ahead and work hard, because one thing most of you know that this committee can do is make recommendations to the county commission where we take action, and we can use funds, and I'm going to continue to push for more funds toward land acquisition for the county, because it's very easy to leverage that money with the state, either through the Florida Forever program or some other programs, Communities Trust. So there are always going to be opportunities to hopefully increase the breadth of your work, particularly when it comes to dollars. We will now be able to be a county that matches state funds, and that's a great thing when we're talking about acquiring conservation lands, because as a commissioner, I can't, it does not appear in my sort of fuzzy crystal ball that there's going to be any slowdown in the immediate or even foreseeable future of the continued migration to Florida and the migration to the fastest growing or second fastest growing county in the state, St. John's. So we're going to continue to have to deal with, I think, more and more people, and one of the things that I think will lead to a great balance of more people is more open space, and the way we do that is through this committee, working with us, the county commission. So again, I'm going to turn it back over to Jan and let her guide you through the necessary procedural steps. I think are we electing a chairman today?
Yes, we are. Everyone should have your agenda item packet. So we're going to be,
everybody, so y'all are going to do y'all are going to be able to get right to work. So I'm going to step out, but again, I want to welcome everyone and thank you for serving, okay? And it's good to see everybody that I know and meet those I haven't. Elizabeth, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, guys, y'all go to it.
Thank you, Commissioner Dean. So if you'll see on your agenda packet today, we have the first item is Lampboard member introduction. So we would like each of the Lampboard members, if you would, just introduce yourself, provide a little bit of background so everyone here can get to know you. After that, Christine is going to speak. She's from the county attorney's office, and she's going to give us some guidance on sunshine laws, the ordinance, the Lampboard, and mission statement, and all of that. So if we could start with the introductions of the Lampboard members, and Wayne, maybe we can start with you.
My name is Wayne Flowers. I'm an attorney with Lewis, Longman & Walker. My primary areas of practice are environmental permitting and litigation, also do some land use litigation and governmental law. I had the pleasure many years ago, between 1986 and 1996, of being general counsel at the St. Johns River Water Management District, where I work with Mike and with Henry. You know, Henry kind of expressed my sentiments that land acquisition is a very important tool along with the regulatory tools for growth management, one of the more fair and equitable ones. And so I am excited to have the opportunity to serve with you guys on this board.
I'm Holly Smith. I work in a family business. We're real estate developers, build single-family neighborhoods, primarily in the Northeast Florida area. My dad began the company back in the 70s, and my brother-in-law and I have started taking the reins there, although he's still there to nag us from time to time. And I'm honored to take part in in the board, in our committee, and excited to bring my skill set. I also agree that as the county is inevitably going to grow, that we need to do it well and do it wisely, and with preservation and with conservation can enhance the county and the citizens' experience here. So excited to do that and learn from all of you as well.
Good afternoon. I'm Elizabeth Guthrie. I am currently an adjunct professor of environmental science at Flagler College. Prior to teaching at Flagler, I was with the North Florida Land Trust for almost 8 years as their director of land stewardship. So I have been living and breathing land acquisition and conservation for some time in Northeast Florida. So my background is largely in natural resources management, land management, conservation planning, as well as grants and funding for conservation. So I'm thrilled to be on this board and so glad that the LAMP has been reinstated and look forward to serving with all of you.
Hey, I'm Shorty Robbins. I used to be on staff with the county in Parks and Rec, and when I was here in the early 2000s, I was the liaison to the Lampboard for Parks and Rec, and how I became acquainted with the county. Between here and with the city of Jacksonville, wrote land acquisition grants mostly through Florida Communities Trust for parks, and a lot of the large open spaces that are rec facilities in the county are projects that I've worked on back in those times. Been in Parks and Rec, retired after 35 years, a few years ago, and moved back to St. Johns County so that my youngest could go to high school at Bartram. And I am currently with Representative Cindy Stevenson as her district aide, and so came out of retirement to come back. I'm very, very excited about this, the reinstatement of this, and I'm also currently the president of the newly formed Parks Foundation that is operating as a support arm for the County Parks and Recreation Department.
My name's J.B. Miller. I currently work for the City of St. Augustine part-time. For those that have heard of the Fish Island Preserve Project, I'm the manager, which is a part-time thing. But prior to that, I've done a lot of land acquisition, a lot of land management. I worked for 19 years for the state park system, worked like Henry and worked with Henry on a bunch of acquisitions, and then for the Water Management District for 14, 15 years, whatever it was. Definitely doing a lot of land acquisition. While I was there, we bought over 150,000 acres of land. So this is near and dear to my heart and big time. And I'm very honored and very happy to be on the committee for sure. So
I'm Jim Watson. I'm a Florida native, born and raised in Lake County. From there to Florida State, and then the United States Army. After that, Florida National Guard, and I was an executive with Sprint in Florida. And when I graduated from high school, there were 3 million people in the state. And so I'm very interested in trying to preserve what I remember as a kid and a young man growing up here. I finished my career as the commander, as the Assistant Adjutant General of the Florida Army National Guard here for several years. Retired in 2003.
Good afternoon, my name is Mike Adams, and I know a lot of you in the room through one capacity or another, but I've been kind of all over the place. I guess I'm semi-retired now, and I was telling Jimmy that I feel like I'm working harder now than I was when I was working. A lot of volunteer projects and interest projects and things like that, and I was thrilled to hear that this board was renewing itself again, because I served on it 10, 15 years ago, and so I know it's really important for all the reasons that everybody has talked about, and so I'm really looking forward to it. I bring a background of science, land conservation. I own some property on the St. Johns River, and I manage it, and I do educational things out there and stuff like that. So I know how important conservation land is, but I also understand that we have to balance everything, and that's the challenge that we face, is balancing everything. So I'm hoping that with the mindsets that we have in this room, that we can really attack this thing and really do a good job on making the county the kind of place that people still want to come here, and those of us that are here, we still want to stay here. So I'm thrilled to be working with all of you.
My name's Travis Minch. I'm not sure I know anybody here personally, so I'm looking forward to meeting everybody, working with them. My background, well, I guess I should say I work in real estate sales. I'm a local realtor. I know St. Johns County pretty well. I focus a lot on land sales, looking at opportunities for construction, helping people with due diligence, kind of getting through the process. I think Ryan probably knows me best out of anybody because we've had to interact on a few projects here and there. My background, as far as educational background, is I got an undergraduate degree in public administration. I kind of thought that I would go into the path of, local government. Worked for a few municipalities in budgeting and in planning. Went to school for urban and regional planning, actually specialized in environmental planning at FAU, and did some time at the Graduate Research Center at FAU looking at marine management plans. Kind of cut my teeth in working as a land development consultant. We would do work for local governments, helping with comprehensive plans, land development codes, water management plans. I was kind of like an analyst at that time, very junior level, kind of where the rubber meets the road, so to speak. But like I said, I kind of got away from that today, do mostly real estate sales. I think this committee is an awesome opportunity to combine a land acquisition tool with, regulatory tools. I mean, one tool isn't going to solve all the problems, but at least this is one more tool we have at the county to manage growth, conserve, wildlife species, environmentally sensitive areas. And so I hope we can really create an awesome program that, the commissioners like. The regular resident of St. Johns County says, yeah, that's working good, and perhaps we can, get involved in some like crowdfunding type stuff too. I mean, I hope we can really leverage, all the different opportunities we have to make it a great program. So excited to be here.
All right. Thank you, guys. Again, we thank you for being here and volunteering your time on the Lampboard. Now we're going to have Christine guide us through a few of the procedural items. One thing I failed to mention at the very beginning, housekeeping rules. If you need the restroom, it's right out this door, and you can come in and out at will. But Christine?
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Christine Valier. I'm a senior assistant county attorney with St. John's. I've been here for a year, but prior to that, I worked for 25 plus years with Brevard County. And I had the privilege of working with their similar counterparts, their environmentally endangered lands program, and I assisted with acquisition of millions of dollars worth of conservation lands, assisted with obtaining grants from the state and federal government to assist with acquisition and management of those lands. So I'm very happy to be continuing that work here in St. Johns County. So what I wanted to do today is hopefully not put you to sleep, but I want to explain to you some of the legal mechanics of being on an advisory board in the state of Florida. In addition to the new ordinance, this board is subject to the Florida Sunshine Law, Public Records Act, Code of Ethics, also the Board of County Commissioners Rules and Policies, and land conservation bylaws, which there's a draft that you probably picked up on the way into the room. That is a document that would be approved by the Board of County Commissioners at a later date. All these documents have been provided to you in your blue folder that you received from Melissa Lundquist. So with that, I have a PowerPoint presentation, and I did print out a copy of the slides at the beginning of the table there if you like to follow along or make notes. And people learn different ways, so I try to present that information in a variety of ways. So we'll start with the Sunshine Law. The purpose is to provide the public access to governmental proceedings at both the state and local levels. This applies to appointed boards. There are 4 basic requirements. Meetings must be open to the public. Reasonable notice of such meetings will be given. That's something that staff handles. Minutes are taken and recorded and available to the public. And also there's an opportunity for public comment at meetings. So what type of meetings are subject to the Sunshine Law? It's actually a very broad term. It's not just these notice meetings here today. It can constitute any gathering of 2 or more board members to discuss matter which will foreseeably come before the board, whether or not it's on an actual agenda. So please keep that in mind. It includes these sessions, workshops, informal discussion with other members, and meetings where there will be no formal action taken by this board. So it is very broad. It includes also phone calls, email discussions, discussions on social media. So it is best if you have any questions about whether something you're going to do or any communications that you have with another member applies to the Sunshine Law, please feel free to ask a question.
So we'd email you directly?
You can email me directly, and that information is provided in the packet. Some more situations. Yes, sir?
Is there a suspected violation of the Sunshine Law? Who investigates?
Well, it depends if it's at a criminal level or a civil level. So if it's criminal, obviously it would be the state attorney's office. The county doesn't have any investigative body for such violations. It would be a matter of that citizen bringing an action to enforce what they believe is a violation. So that's usually handled in circuit court. More examples of what has been considered conversations subject to the Sunshine Law, even sidebar notes or discussions at a meeting that is off the record. Again, if you receive a group email or text message, you don't want to respond to another board member in that same message. Does that make sense? Social media has presented a new dynamic, if you will, for communications. So you don't want to respond to any social media comments about board business that you might find on Facebook or Nextdoor or any other social media platform. You also would want to avoid using a third party to relay messages back and forth to another board member. Let's talk about public comment. There are provisions in your bylaws that discuss public comment. That is, the public has a right to reasonable opportunity to be heard on a proposition before the board takes an official action. And in addition, traditionally, public is provided an opportunity to make general comments, usually at the beginning or the end of the meeting, whatever this board would decide, on matters that aren't necessarily on the agenda but might be of interest to this board. So there is some decorum that's provided in your rules for the efficient operation of your meetings. The chair will run public comment, and all comments will be addressed through the chair. And the chair can control the meeting, and not just the public comment, but also the discussion amongst the board members in terms of recognizing them so we can have an orderly discussion when motions are made. The bylaws provide public comment of 3 minutes unless the chair extends that time for good cause. Public comment is just that. It doesn't require an answer from the board or from staff. It's not a back and forth discussion. It's an opportunity to receive comment from the public. So what happens if there's a sunshine law violation? Any action is void. It would have to be cured by coming back to a properly noticed public meeting for another motion in action. These are not intended to scare you. These rarely happen, but these are consequences for a violation of sunshine law provisions. They range from removal from office, civil fines, and for knowing violations, there could be some criminal penalties. So, Florida has a very broad sunshine law, one of the broadest in the country. The purpose is to provide transparency in the governmental process. So, if you think you're getting creative or find yourself wondering how to maneuver amongst these laws, please call me and we'll sort it out. So, Public Records Act. The public has a right of access to records of state and local government entities. This is a right provided in the Florida Constitution and Florida statutes. This also applies to private entities acting on behalf of a governmental agency. Constitutional right. So, every person has a right to inspect and copy public records made or received in connection with official public business of any governmental entity. So that phrase, made in connection with official public business, is very important. The records have to relate to the business of this board. Again, this applies to county governments and advisory boards of the county. Florida statutes provides the definition for what a public record is. As you might presume, it's very broad. Any type of physical document, papers, letters, recording, videos. Now that we have digital media, that is also public record. Posting public business on social media causes that message to be public record, so think carefully about that when you do so. So public records have to be designed to perpetuate, communicate, and formalize knowledge. Public records also have to be maintained according to certain legal requirements. The emails sent to you by county staff are being maintained by county staff. Any communication you otherwise receive from county staff is being maintained by them. You don't have to worry about that. If you generate records that you don't share with county staff, you would be the custodian of those records. I would recommend to you that you provide any documents to county staff that they are not already aware of, so then the maintenance responsibility is on them. Otherwise, if there's a public records request for documents that you might have, where staff is going to be asking you for copies of those documents. Yes?
Question for you. So during the course of a meeting, let's say, even this, we're scribbling down some notes that we want to, review something later. Wouldn't that constitute a public record in a way?
If you're not sharing those notes, if they're for your own personal recollection, those are not considered public records. It's not a communication, it's to yourself.
That's considered work product then?
No, work product is something different, and it would only apply in lawsuits, and that'd be communication between staff and the legal department. But if you're just writing notes to remind yourself of what was discussed, then that's not a public record. You're not sharing those with any other people. The minute you share those, then that
With other
becomes...
board members, right? Gotcha.
On the other hand, there's nothing to stop them from sharing the records, so they might as well do it, right? If they have notes. The better view would be let the public have it. It's not updated, it's not uniform, it's not classified, it's not nothing, it's not HIPAA.
If it's not a public record, then you can't require a
But
disclosure.
if
So
he wants to turn over his notes,
if he voluntarily wants to,
Thanks.
he could,
For
yes,
sure.
anybody could. So when you leave service with this committee, if you have any records that you're unsure that the county already has a copy of, provide them to staff, please. Again, to the fund violation part, these violations are also subject to fines, potential removal from office, and criminal consequences depending on the severity and the knowledge and the intent involved. Also, attorney's fees and costs could be assessed for an enforcement action under the Public Records Act. So this is a list of resources with the Attorney General's website for information regarding Public Records Act, Sunshine Law in general. The second one, the Government Sunshine Manual, is a very comprehensive document. There used to be a book that was published. It's now available as a PDF, and I would highly recommend it if you really want to delve into the details, and then call me to talk about it. Thanks. Code of Ethics. Advisory board members are also subject to Code of Ethics, just like elected officials. Again, the purpose is to promote the public interest, trust in government, and the Code of Ethics is intended to ensure that you conduct yourselves independently and impartially and not use your office for any private gain as part of your role and service on this committee. Voting. So as a member, you are required to vote on an item that comes before this board unless you have a conflict of interest that's defined by law. I will tell you that Code of Ethics provisions are very tricky and they're very fact specific. So if you have any questions about a particular circumstance, I would urge you to call me. We'll get into one example here of financial conflict of interest. And so again, you may not abstain from a vote if you're uncomfortable with the motion for political reasons or personal reasons, unless you have basically a financial conflict of interest. So if you have a conflict of interest, there's a certain procedure that you should follow. You should not participate in the discussion on the motion without first disclosing that you have a conflict of interest. You can generally state the nature of that conflict of interest. And it's the type of interest that would inure to your special gain or loss. And we'll talk a bit more about what special gain or loss means in a moment. And it applies to appointed boards. So special gain or private loss means economic benefit or harm that would inure to not just you, the board member, but your relative, business associate, or principal, unless the benefit is a benefit that would apply to a large group of people. That's where the word specific comes into play. So these 4 criteria are used to consider whether a potential financial, it could be a gain or a loss, would fit this definition. You look at the size of people affected by the vote, the nature of the interest involved, the degree to which the interest of all members would be affected, and the degree to which the individual officer's interest would be affected. And this is going to pertain to your relatives, meaning your husband, your wife, son, daughter, brother, sister-in-law. So it goes a little bit down your family tree, but there is a limit to it. Once you disclose, there is a form, it's called an 8B form, that staff would assist you with, and you fill that out, and then that is read into the record at the following meeting. Gifts. Advisory board members are subject to state laws pertaining to solicitation and acceptance of certain gifts. In some instances, acceptance or solicitation is completely prohibited. In others, it may be acceptable with certain circumstances and subject to certain reporting requirements. There's a prohibition from accepting or soliciting anything of value that would be given or accepted to sway your vote and influence your vote. So that includes loans, promises of employment, services, anything of value. That's considered bribery and a quid pro quo, which would be prohibited by the Code of Ethics. So it's not whether you actually knew, it's also whether you should know. So a reasonable standard would be applied to looking at that question. So again, if there is a question, you can contact me. However, you can accept gifts in general if they are less than $100 and they are reported quarterly with forms that staff could assist you with, and it's reported to the Commission on Ethics. If you received a gift inadvertently, you can have the opportunity to repay that and avoid a potential penalty and reporting. So that does happen from time to time. So any gift you do receive from a lobbyist that exceeds $25, and this would be an allowable gift, not a gift to influence a decision, then that's when you have a reporting requirement to file that on a quarterly basis.
Query, since we don't require lobbyists to register in St. Johns County, how are folks going to know if they've just received a gift from one? Y'all need to work on that. We need a lobbying disclosure from
That's
board.
easy, just don't take any guess.
You got it. Thank you, sir.
There you go. That's kind of, I provided a lot of this information, so it seemed complicated, so you just avoid it. So, again, the reporting requirements don't apply to gifts that you are absolutely prohibited from receiving. So if there's a question about the difference, please let me know. And I think this is the last slide regarding the particular form that you would need to file if you did accept a gift that was a permissible gift. Penalties for Code of Ethics violations, similar to penalties for Sunshine Law and Public Records Act, removal from office, potential fines, and restitution of any benefits that you received.
I got a couple of questions.
Yes, sir.
So I can't call anybody on this board and discuss with them anything we're talking about?
No.
Okay. Can I call the county staff?
Yes.
And they'll keep a record of that call?
They
I keep
have-
records of all my calls and emails, but sometimes maybe not the nature of the call. You could call and we could discuss the next meeting date or something like that. I would just have on my notepad that you called me.
Okay. So I can't talk with anybody about anything this board discussed except here in this room?
That is correct.
Okay, that's pretty straightforward.
Yes. So typically, at the end of your agenda, there's something called board member reports. So that would be a time to bring up issues that aren't necessarily on the agenda that you maybe want to talk about at a future meeting.
Okay, I got one other question.
Yes.
Do members of this board face a possibility of personal liability for any recommendations that this board makes? Could somebody sue us? Could somebody sue me personally for a recommendation this board makes?
I don't believe that there could be a cause of action. There would have to be damages for there to be liability, and you're just making recommendations. The ultimate decision maker is the Board of County Commissioners, so I don't think any liability would attach to your recommendations.
Yeah, I don't think so either. One other question. What happened to the previous board? Why was it disbanded?
I'm going to defer to
Well-
Dan. Jan, since I've just been here for a year.
Yeah. Actually, the board, I don't know that they lost interest, but that board at that time lost funding. It wasn't funded at all. So it was basically a recommendation board. Those recommendations really never met fruition because there was no money to actually buy the acquisitions, to actually go for the acquisitions. So members were dropping off, so there was less and less activity with that board. And then the decision was made to deactivate the board, so to speak. The good thing about the reactivation of the board is that now it's funded. And has been funded for $500,000 annually. To date, we have $1 million in the Lampboard. I don't think it's, what fund? Is it in a fund, do we know?
Yes, I think it's a separate.
Okay, it's
lamp.
a separate fund, so there's $1
Conservation
million sitting there waiting for this board to make some actions.
Thank you, Council.
Okay, you're welcome.
Can I add a little bit to that? Also, the state agencies that provided some matching funding didn't get funded for several years. So it just sort of, there was a dark time.
Yeah, Shorty and actually I think JD participated in a lot of grant writing at that time. And that's what most of the purchases that the Lampboard actually made were through grants.
Yeah.
And then when the grants weren't funded anymore.
Y'all have a grant writer?
No. Shorty.
She's a master.
Okay, if there are any more questions, we can move on to selecting a chair or vice chair, and I can assist with that since there isn't a current chair. But the process works where each office is nominated. Oh.
No. I was patting her on being the grant writer.
Okay. So we can take nominations for the chair first. There would be a nomination and a second, and once nominations are closed, then we'll start taking votes on the first person who was nominated until we have somebody who's approved by a majority of the board. And that would be, since there's only 8, then that's going to be 5 still.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
So,
This way.
does anybody want to nominate a fellow member or themselves for chair?
I'd like to know who served on the previously disbanded board. Still interested. Were you on the
Mike
board?
did.
I was a member on the previous board.
Anybody else? Well, I nominate Mike Adams.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Are there any more nominations? Well, we can close nominations and have a vote. All in favor of appointing Mike Adams chair, please
Aye.
respond.
Aye.
Sorry, Vic.
Yep.
Wait, are we doing Robert's rules here? Any opposed?
Good man.
That motion carries. Congratulations.
Well, thank you.
Adams. And are there any nominations for vice chair?
I'd like to nominate Wayne Flowers.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Any other nominations? All in favor of appointing Wayne Flowers as vice chair, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, that also carries. Thank you. Would you like to take over the meeting or now? Or you can wait till the next one if you
I'm
like.
probably a little rusty, so I'll follow your lead.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, actually, the next thing on the agenda was to call the meeting to order with the new chair and vice chair. And then, I guess, go into discussion of the mission statement and bylaws.
Sure. So the purpose of this conservation meeting, or conservation board, as you may have already read, again, it was reestablished late last year to serve as an advisory board to the Board of County Commissioners on issues involving acquisition, conservation, and management of environmentally sensitive lands, as well as archaeological sites, historic sites, recreation lands, and aquifer recharge areas. We did provide a copy of the bylaws to you, and there's an edited version after I got hold of it. So it basically does two things. It includes the mission and purpose and duties of this board under the ordinance, and provides general operational guidelines that are the same as what are provided to most of the other advisory boards for the county. One thing I wanted to highlight to you, regular terms. We do have some members who are on 4 terms, but at the beginning of this board, they do want to stagger terms. So you'll notice on your roster that there are some members who are on 2-year terms for initial terms. That's Mr. Minch, Mr. Miller, Mr. Flowers, and Ms. Robbins. There are also attendance requirements. So if you are not able to attend a meeting, please let staff know, and they will help you track that and track compliance with that policy. Most of your votes are going to be majority votes, with the exception of the annual, and that's on page 4, voting. Annually, you will submit a ranked list of potential acquisitions for recommendation to the Board of County Commissioners, and that particular list needs to be approved by a supermajority vote of...
About page 3.
Oh, I'm sorry, I have a different copy. Sorry.
I was not sure if I knew what it was.
So it's under the voting section towards the very end. That list has to be approved by at least 6 members. And that it's not dependent upon who shows up. If 6 people show up, then all of them would have to vote to approve that. And that's per the ordinance. All of your other decisions would be basic supermajority approval. I'm sorry, regular majority approval.
Christine?
Yes.
So I guess we're 1 member short?
One
Is
member.
that, do they have to, do the commission then has to appoint somebody at their next meeting type thing?
Actually, one member opted out once they were appointed by Commissioner Blocker. Commissioner Blocker has been informed that that person dropped out, and he is in a decision-making mode now. I think he's in a discussion too to see, because there were other individuals that expressed interest on being on the board. So he has the option of maybe bringing one of those individuals forward, or maybe even we may need to re-advertise and see if there's other interest from individuals in the community to come on board. But we're in discussions now with the office to figure out what he would like to do.
Okay. So this is a lot of the administrative stuff. I think now Ryan is ready to talk to you about discussing the focus areas.
Sure. Yeah, you'll see in your packet you have 3 different maps. There's one that's an 8.5 by 11 with some brown areas. That's basically everything that is not already in conservation. And there's also another couple of maps there, larger maps, 11 by 17, colored maps. One has, it's this one here, has all the existing county conservation areas on it. As well, there's an all sort of green map in there that has all of the Board of Trustees lands. So we have the Matanzas to Ocala Conservation Corridor, the Northeast Florida Blueway, and the St. Johns River Blueway. Those are all Board of Trustees Florida Forever project areas. Basically to help hone in on, where we're going to focus our acquisitions or potential acquisitions. And so that's what those maps are for. We do have access to our GIS, our in-house St. Johns County GIS department, as well as real estate. And so they'd be able to assist, say for, available properties in those areas. And so that's what those maps are for there.
Right, so what we wanted to do today was to flood you all with information, but to give you all the maps and tools that we think, that you can go and at your leisure, look at the maps, make some decision-making, areas, think about the county and potential acquisitions, and this will sort of be your homework for the next board meeting when you come. We also have provided a matrix and some other tools that we would want you to work on and see if there's any additions or deletions from that matrix that needs to happen that assist in decision-making mode as well. One thing I will say, as we proceed as a group, we will be bringing in other county staff as needed. So, if you have something on the agenda and you think someone from the real estate department or Parks and Recreation or one of the other county departments needs to be involved, we will then be inviting that staff to attend the meeting as your support staff to answer any questions that you may have. So it's not just going to be Ryan and myself, staff will come in and out as this board needs them.
Ryan, the Brown map, could you clarify this once again? I see the central corridor that's kind of labeled with the green outline.
Yes.
Help me with what we're looking at here. This is kind of a staff recommended for the lamp focus?
Yes, basically this is a once-over, again, very preliminary focus areas, just to highlight those areas that are not already in conservation or development. And so I basically took all of those areas out. So you might see some areas that aren't the brown sort of color. Those are typically, those are going to be your, the large PUDs that are in or other type of developments. And the other, you can see under the legend there, you'll see conservation easements. So this map is full of the private conservation easements that you typically have in your developments where, developers are required to record. And so you'll see a lot of the northern part of the county has those already, with that development. And then you have, the larger properties like Matanzas State Forest, 12 Mile Swamp, GTM NER, that sort of stick out there, as well as the recently acquired McCullough Creek Conservation Area there in yellow that the county just acquired in 2018. But then you hit on it, there is a central corridor area that's sort of a general outline of, a target area, if you will, of attempting to, set up a wildlife greenway system in the county that links other conservation areas together.
Is that what the green dash lines are?
Yeah, and that's just something that I drew on there, again, just as an overall feature of the map.
But it's, in theory, the most accessible in terms of land that would come available or could come available for us to look at acquiring.
Yeah, and it also sort of falls in line with the other Board of Trustees focus areas as well with the state.
Gotcha.
This is, we're talking about, again, the area inside the dashed green line?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, that's.
Could I ask something? So it would seem to me that one map that we're missing is the current park system map. And I don't know if there's an updated one. I went on GIS and I don't know how currently updated that one is. But that would be helpful because part of our mission here in purpose is recreation lands.
Right.
And that doesn't necessarily mean just the big stuff. There's quite a few prior acquisitions that this board had that are much smaller properties that are jewels in the park system here.
Well, we can certainly, again, in the future meetings, we may not have a lot of paper to hand out, but we will be able to access on the screen and
I
we
mean,
can
I'm real
focus
familiar
in.
with it, but I'd like for everybody to, be, because that's to me one that's shouting that it's not here.
Okay.
Oh, and on that topic, maybe a map that would show centers of population and recreation to where if there's a missing piece or a missing something, you could say, this neighborhood needs a ball field, just based on the statistics.
Yeah, and we will have Parks and Rec staff
Right.
available.
And
at
I
the
believe
next
they've
meeting.
got a master plan that does show those kind of things, but, that, so they would come report to us if they needed help with that kind of issue, I'm sure.
Yeah, and in terms of maps too, I wanted to highlight, we do have the wall board here, and so I'll be able to pull up from my computer, my desk, and actually see my screen there, so we'll have GIS available to us, and any of the other map series on the county's website, Greenways, Blueways, Trails map, and others.
This question on the 3 maps we have here, is this a file that we can get a high resolution copy that we can zoom in at our own time to kind of study it more so?
Yeah, I can get an FTP site and email it to everybody, because they are very large files,
Okay.
big PDFs, so you can zoom in and yeah, because they're fairly small in the printed version. Yeah, yeah.
And regarding recreation, it is the focus, according to the ordinance, that the recreation opportunities addressed by this board is for passive recreation.
Yeah.
I see.
Yeah.
And just a point of clarification, the central corridor, that description comes from where? What is that the brainchild of the comp plan or?
That is just strictly staff's interpretation of linking existing conservation areas together. It's a good place to start.
But it's also the Kansas and county corridor.
It's also part
Which
of
is
that.
the state ecological corridor.
Right. Hand-drawn, not, any sort of attributes to it, just that it's centrally located.
And the area that Mr. Miller mentioned is on the larger map where you can see the lighter brown area that labels that. So I was trying to link,
Yeah.
what's included in that. So
Yeah, that's
It's helpful.
on your larger green map. You'll see the Florida Forever areas there.
JB, please.
Yeah.
So one other question, we understand we have $1 million in this budget. It's funded $500K annually. I can tell you, of course, being in real estate, that doesn't go very far. Is there any sort of other document, or is this part of the process, so to speak, that there be a cohesive plan for coordinating, other than, obviously we've got existing sites that have been identified, but is there any sort of plan of action of how do we best utilize the money so that in the end, we've created a linkage or we've created something versus just kind of like, hey, this is in the target area, let's grab a piece here, let's, see if we can buy this here. Is there any sort of cohesive purchasing strategy, or is that part of our sort of task here?
That's part of, you want me to, I was going to say, that's part of your task here. That's actually in the Lampboard ordinance. It actually states that this board will be preparing a process. That's one reason we started with this draft matrix to help guide your decision-making process. But the whole structure of the program will be created by this board. So, if you have options or ideas on how you think the decision-making process should go, you can certainly provide that to us, and then we can prepare packages to send to the group or, put out on the next.
So that would be kind of made part of the matrix, so to speak, in some way, like, hey, is this adjacent to something that was...
Right, and this is another part of your all's homework too? This matrix, we only have, 10 items here or so. JB, I know you're very familiar with, how the Water Management District went through their analysis. So maybe, look at this with, another eye and see if there's other topics or other areas that need to be on this matrix, which would assist with your decision-making.
you'd want to allow, I think, for opportunities as well, where another partner wants to leverage either our money or us leverage their money, where it might not be the number one item on the list, but a great opportunity to get something that's high on the list, you know, for just a little bit of the county's money, or a big piece of property for all of the county's money in 1 year. That, you know, again, might be a great opportunity.
If there could be opportunities other than buying a piece of property, there's also transfer of development rights and conservation easements, and so there could be discussion about those options to kind of stretch the limited dollars available.
And there is, as Shorty mentioned, the grants dried up for a while, but they're coming back now. And so the dollars that are sitting in the Lampboard line item could be used as match for a grant. So although it's only $1 million, but if you have $1 million in a match, that could go a long way.
Sure. So if we have some recommendations or ideas for how to develop these criteria and start evaluating, do you want us to coordinate with staff first to be brought to the next meeting?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I think there are some great examples out there, particularly with the way Nassau County is running their conservation land acquisition and management program now, which is something I was involved in when I was with the Land Trust, that I think we can, you know, not necessarily reinvent the wheel on a lot of things, so I'd be happy to speak with you guys about that.
And did this evaluation criteria, was this something used by the prior Lampboard?
They had a small
Much
list.
smaller.
Yeah, and so we expanded a little bit, trying to use some of the state's strategies, but it's in no way is this the final product. If you think there needs to be more on it, please, you know, let us know.
But you prefer, I mean, when, as a committee, when we start doing the ranking, which is, I know, down the road a ways, it's probably in everybody's best interest that there is a consensus, or I don't know how, what we do it, that everything would be evaluated, of course. Mm-hmm. This parcel has this value based on our ranking, or whatever the right word is. I mean, one of these for every piece of parcel that we recommend, yes?
Mm-hmm. Correct.
I guess that's what I put it.
Mm-hmm.
Because that way, how else do you compare and how else do you
So you're
rank?
not chasing
That's
the
gonna be
shiny
our
object.
filter.
Sure.
Yeah, it's a filter.
It's kind of like how the trail projects are ranked on the bike ped committee and that kind of thing. And then, like they were saying, if they don't, you know, you might have your rankings annually, 1 through 5, but say a grant comes up that's like, whoa, this project number 3, this grant totally fits this project number 3, then we look at that and say, let's, you know, because of matching available funds through a grant process, bump that up, see if that goes. So it's a very fluid thing, but at least it gives you a starting place.
And Travis, if we decide that, say, if our number one choice has to be something that's either like in, for instance, this Ocala corridor or in the Blue Waves, yes, $1 million isn't a lot of money, but the state's pot is actually pretty big right now.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how much access will, you know, but if it's already on there for forever priority list, you know, we could put in $1 million and they might put in 15. I mean, it could be that big of a bump. So I guess my message there is don't think small.
Yeah, and don't let the price tag
And don't
scare
let,
you.
yeah, don't let the price tag scare you. Yeah, because you'd be surprised what can be leveraged.
So at the next meeting, when you discuss criteria, will you have the information of what's already on the list for other state agencies or funded? That's all on a map, but it might be helpful to have a list.
Well, we can do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One other specific question, I think this, you know, I didn't list the title of the document, but you may recognize the language, but I think it was a board responsibility that caught my eye. And I think it's one of our responsibilities is to direct, it's under D, and again, I'm sorry, I think it's 3D under one of the documents we have, I think it is. But it says direct development away from historic sites, archaeological sites, environmentally sensitive lands, aquifer recharge areas, and high hazard areas that are subject to flooding or fire. And it caught my eye because the term
Yeah.
given to us was direct development away. And, you know, our primary, or really our only tool is land acquisition. We don't have, you know, regulatory tools available to sort of direct. And so I guess how should we interpret that language and as a responsibility of the board to direct something when we really don't have that capacity?
Well, you're looking at, let's see, it's section 7C.
Is this in the handouts that we just got today?
No, it's in the
It's in the blue
ordinance
folder.
itself. You want to take a moment and look at it. Again, it's 7C.
So mine has page numbers, is there a page?
It doesn't have, mine doesn't have page numbers either, sorry. But it's the 2021 ordinance, section 7. If it was numbered, it'd be page 5.
Yes, it was a printout.
Yeah, no, fine. And it's talking about several items, A through K, to take into consideration when the board develops the selection criteria standards for ranking. So I don't think that any one of these stand on its own as actions for this board to do. Obviously, directing development away is going to be a decision of the Board of County Commissioners. But to the extent that an acquisition would potentially be around a sensitive area and eliminate that property from being developed, I think that's what it's talking about.
Mike, did you not get, it's ordinance 2021, it should be in your blue folder, 2021-38.
38.
I don't know, I have a lot of things here. Okay, let me see.
Yeah, it was loose. Here.
Okay.
I will go, let's make sure everyone has a copy of this ordinance. Does everyone else have a copy?
Okay, JB, I found it.
Oh,
Thank you.
Of course, it was the very
Okay.
last page.
Yeah, very last one.
So this section 7 in the ordinance would be good to review before the next meeting. It provides the guidance and all the functions of this board, but in particular, the criteria that should go into creating a selection matrix.
Yeah, so before we close our meeting today, let's make sure we all have our homework. And after action, follow-up. We can summarize it at the end.
Can I just comment on that one? You're taking it real literally, but I think,
Yes, Christine?
Christine, I'm sorry, explained it in that we can direct development away from things by acquiring, you know, recommending them to be acquired. And that way, you don't get 40 houses on an environmentally sensitive site. And so that's sort of our role in helping to direct things away from sensitive areas. Any of you that know my favorite project, Alpine Groves Park, but we actually had a development plan for 40 houses on that site. And any of you that go out there now see that it's, you know, 52 acres of beautiful sunsets. So you know, and I can list off a whole bunch of sites that there were developers with their eyes on them and plans sketched up that the land board recommended for acquisition to the county, and now are public parks.
Fish Island Preserve.
Yeah.
So I think that answer was directed at you.
Yeah, no, I
Yeah.
understand.
Got that?
Yeah.
Okay.
I heard it.
Okay. The other question I have real quick while it's on my mind, who is the secretary?
None
Staff?
of us. We're taking a recording. We don't
Okay.
have support
Is there going to be
staff.
minutes that,
We will do
each of us
very
gets to
brief
see?
minutes.
Okay.
But if you wanted the recording, we could certainly provide the recording.
okay. So there's no formal minutes?
I will provide brief minutes. It's just going to be like bullet points,
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
you know,
okay,
topics that handle. But if you need more detail,
Yeah,
is what I'm
okay.
saying, you can certainly
Okay.
get a copy.
That's probably
of the
good enough for
recording.
me. Yeah, okay. Just was wondering.
Yeah.
Only saw 2 officers here, Wayne and myself.
No, there's no second,
Yeah.
that's.
And Wayne, I don't know if you're taking minutes or not.
I'm taking rough notes here.
Yeah, me too. Okay,
No, you're not required to take minutes.
okay.
I have a quick philosophical question. This is kind of like the Army, we always had targeting meetings, high-value targets and then easy targets. What do we look for here as a philosophically? Do we look for the high-value target that we think will most benefit the county over the next 100 years? Or do we pick off the easy guys?
The age-old question.
I think the matrix helps us determine that, quite frankly, as you score things, and as we come back with adjusted criteria, as we amend this a little bit, I think that helps us do that.
So the matrix will be our targeting.
That's the starting place for sure.
And I think if there's a threat somewhere,
Mhm.
if there's a threat of a development on or adjacent to a sensitive land, that becomes a higher priority, for example.
So we need Fish Island, we need to add that to our matrix, and, you know, is there an imminent threat of development, and how high is that gonna be on our criteria? Yeah. I mean, we can account for lots of stuff, and I don't think it needs to be carved in stone either, as we see more criteria that, as we work through this.
Yeah, targets of opportunity.
Sure.
Well, it's also difficult, if you think how, when I worked with Carl, the state's land acquisition program, and they can spend $10 million and buy 20,000 acres in North Florida, or 10 acres in Miami-Dade County. How do you weigh that?
Yeah.
It's really, really, really tough. I mean, that's something, to this day, they still fight over, because they both have value, without question they have value. And some could argue that beautiful 10 acres in Miami-Dade County someplace may be like the only, the last example of this type of habitat. That's a toughie, because you're gonna have parts of this county where land value is skewed, obviously. And that's gonna be tough for us. But again, we can't get too wrapped around the value thing. That's why we hopefully rank it the way, as a group, I think that stuff will all kind of fall out. I mean, I'm sure you guys have done the same thing. Picking some of that stuff is really hard.
Well, so much of land conservation is opportunistic, too.
Truly.
You ever get landowners to give it up?
Yes.
Oh, yeah, if you wait long enough.
Yep.
Yep. Sometimes it becomes their only option. You might wait around 5 or 6 years, but
Well, not only that, you get landowners, Alpine Groves, the family wanted it to be a park, they didn't want it to be 40 houses, so they took a whole lot less money. Walter Jones Park in Mandarin, same thing, development on the 10 acres for lots, 30 or 40 houses on that 10 acres. And the family wanted it to be a park, and they took less money, and it's a park.
Yeah, I live on Favorite Heights. I live right outside the park, and that's just a little
At
bit.
Princess,
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah, I was favorite, that's right.
Mhm.
I'm not giving my land up there, so. All right.
That's the picture of the challenge.
Yeah.
Yeah, no. And you know, the guy that used to run the state's land acquisition program, Greg Brock, he said, how many times have I been told, heck no, that's not what he said, when the state approached, because it's a willing seller program, like I said, I make sure everybody knows that it's a willing seller program. How many times the state would say, hey, we'd like to buy this property? No, not a chance. Or, yeah, give me an offer, and they go through the appraisal process, no. And then a couple years later, just that offer's still good. I mean, that's a common thing, so that's why you can't be too wrapped around the axle on what is, can't worry about the price. If it's our higher number one priority, it's our number one priority. We may never get it.
So the ordinance requires a minimum 4 meetings a year, quarterly. You can choose to meet more often if you like. So I don't know if you want to have a discussion about that.
Right, not only, we need to finalize future meeting dates and times, so this is a good time to open that up.
Well, I'll throw it out first. I think initially we need more meetings. I hate meeting us to death, but we've got a lot of work to do. I would think initially we would need more time. I don't know how you feel, Mike, but I would think we'd need a little more frequent meetings. At some point, yes, you can start to space them out in time, but man, we got a lot of homework. We already know that, and I assume we all want this thing up and running pretty quickly. So I would be my suggestion. I don't know what's reasonable. I don't know about once a month, but maybe once every other month. I don't know how y'all feel. That's just a thought. I don't think quarterly is going to be enough.
Is there any restrictions from the county side as far as the amount of your time?
Right.
That
Yeah,
your
that's
food
the
chain is
problem.
offering?
I know that's a
Yeah,
problem.
and we'll do the best we can to tag team between Ryan and I to whatever you all decide, frequency to meet, we'll figure it out. But what I will tell you is we have to advertise for the meetings, and that comes out of the county pocket. So what we would like to do is advertise once for all the meetings for annually. So let's be very specific on what we want to do as far as meeting dates and times so that we only have that one advertisement.
I will tell you the Board of County Commissioners meets the 1st and 3rd Tuesdays of the month, so the 2nd and 4th weeks might be more flexible for staff.
I'd just like to add on to what JB said, especially right now that legislative session just started today, where we're looking at towards some of the state budget, I would think as part of our available matching funds. But he didn't say, but in a lot of land acquisition circles up here is the sucking sound you hear in the state budget is all the money going to South Florida, and we want it back up here. So I think that there's opportunities to make sure that funding that's proposed and was proposed in the governor's address today stays in the budget, and that would require some activity, I think, on our part in the next 60 days, because that's how long the state legislature meets.
You know any legislators?
One or two. Besides the one that I work for, I do know other ones too.
So right now we're set up for quarterly.
We're not, we
You're
only
not set up at all?
advertised this one meeting
Okay.
because we wanted this board to decide.
And Ryan suggested, okay, got it.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we're good. We've only advertised this one meeting. We will need to advertise your subsequent meetings, obviously. Lots of times it's good, as Christine said, the board and the PZA meet like the 1st and 3rd weeks. So you could say the 2nd Tuesday of every other month or something, some frequency like that, then we can go ahead and advertise.
Yeah, so
But you're gonna have-
if we advertise for every other month on the 2nd or the 3rd Tuesday or whatever it was opposite the commission meeting, and if we decide to cancel a meeting, that's
Then
not
I
that
have to
difficult.
advertise the
You'd have to
cancel.
advertise that as well.
Yes.
Okay.
I've never heard of
So-
only doing one advertisement for an agency for a year. I don't like that. I mean, that doesn't really give actual notice to people. You need to have an
It's
advertisement.
So-
actually, yeah, like the state, when it advertises its Carl meetings,
Yeah.
it's the entire year.
It's
Yeah.
common practice.
So this board, you can decide the frequency today. We can always amend it in the future, like after you have your annual meetings. If you've decided, okay, now this was too frequent, and you want to trim it down, or you decide, maybe you need to meet monthly, or whatever it is the board decides, just let us know, and then we can put that advertisement out.
And those same attendance requirements for all of us is
Can't miss.
already set,
Yeah.
regardless of how many meetings you have, right? I mean, so, that's a good point. Well, I just,
Yeah, no, it's a good point.
if we start making frequent meetings and we have to miss more often,
Yeah.
That's not good.
that's a factor too.
So I would like to make a motion that we go every other month on the opposite Tuesday. What did you
The
say?
second
I'm
week.
not sure that you can make a motion. Sure.
Okay, do I have a motion? You made a motion.
I make a motion, we meet every other month on the, what day?
This is the second Tuesday right now, today, so.
Second.
Whatever Tuesday's not the commission meeting.
Second or fourth.
Second.
Okay,
The
Second.
second
Was
Tuesday
that your
of the month.
Second, my motion, Mr. President.
okay. We have a motion on the
I will
table
second
for
that.
every other month on the second Tuesday. Do I have a second?
I will second that.
Okay.
Is the same time, 1:30? Okay.
Are we talking 1:30 to 3:30 approximately? That's what,
Yes, that's what we
generally.
had set up for
Is that,
today.
is that fine for the group?
Yes.
I guess the staff is, obviously,
In
you're a big part of this, so does that work for staff?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, I don't have a calendar in front of me, so Jan, when would be our next meeting then?
Okay, so did you want me to start next month and then do the alternate months, or do you want me to skip a month and then you come back to the meeting?
I think since stuff is happening in our state government, Shorty, what do you think? Start next month?
Sure. That's better than what I hoped, yes.
Okay, so that will be
The 8th.
February 8th will be your next scheduled meeting, and then I will skip a month and then go to the second Tuesday. What I'll do is I'll prepare what will be the ad and send it out to you, the board members, so that you can put all of those dates on your calendar.
We do need to vote on that
Yeah.
Yes.
motion, so.
Okay, so there's a motion on the floor about the next meeting is February 8th, 1:30 to 3:30 approximately, and then every other month from there, the same second Tuesday of the month.
Yes, at 1:30.
And we have a second, discussion?
Discussion, sorry. Apologies, I jumped the gun. Are we setting that for the foreseeable future? Are we setting that for 22? Are we setting that for the first 6 or 8 months
Or something like that.
to get kind of kick-started?
Yeah, I think it's kind
Just
of,
because, with some of our commitments being 4 years.
What was
this-
Jimmy's motion? What was it?
I forgot. No, we meet on the second.
But you didn't give a term.
There was no term. It was
yeah,
every
Jan said
other,
it could be amended though. So,
or you could tell me today, I want this to happen for a 6-month time frame. So I would then advertise only for, the 4 meetings or so.
yeah, how does 6 months sound to start off? Reasonable?
That's great.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, Jan.
Okay. Okay. So this was really a very casual meeting today because we didn't have the chair and vice chair seated at the time. But the next meeting, it will be more like an established board where the chair calls the meeting to order. You will have, an agenda, any agenda item that you would like to be placed on the agenda. Let me know and we can go forward with that. I think the next meeting, your agenda items, you probably pretty much know where they will be going. We'll be bringing your suggestions for any addition to the matrix, any of the maps. We already have another request for a map. And then we can start bringing things up on the computer here, and we can actually zero in on, some images and things going on there. We will at the next meeting too, we'll have a public comment period. You'll see on your agenda today, some of the items were sort of grayed out. Those will be actually brought forward for your next meeting to help guide you in the agenda. But you may want to go ahead and open up for public comment today, if you would like to. I mean, we didn't officially call a meeting to order, but you may want
Okay,
to.
we can
Some
do that.
members of the public
Yeah,
are
we can
here,
do
so
that.
you may want to.
Is this the time to do it right now? Does
I
everybody
would
think?
suggest this would
Pretty
be a
much.
final time, because I think we're going to
We're winding down.
finalize it after
Okay,
this.
okay.
yeah.
Well, at this time, let's open it up for public comment in some kind of orderly manner. I was going to bring the subject up that I want to make sure that we're in an orderly manner when public comments want to be raised. So I'm not sure how that works by Robert's rules. Do they raise their hand, or do they put in a note ahead of time?
There's sheets
Okay.
provided.
Okay, so I would like to stay to that format to minimize interruptions.
Okay, I agree.
So anybody from the public, just like any other public meeting, if you have something on your mind that you know ahead of time, fill out a sheet and we'll get it going from the beginning.
That's right.
But I realize that sometimes things come up during the conversation. We have to have some sort of mechanism in place to just have it constructive and not impact the flow of what we're trying to accomplish.
Well, the board, when you convene your board, you are in session with you, and you will be providing an opportunity for
Okay.
public to speak at the public comment section.
Okay, so there's
They
no
should not be
raise your hand
interrupted.
and,
No,
okay.
no.
However, there are two opportunities for public comment. There's general public comment, and then when you are going to vote, for example, on finalizing a selection and matrix criteria, then you will open that up for public comment before you take your vote.
And I think just as a matter of procedure, you just say, if you want to comment, fill out a slip, and then, on that agenda item, when you get to the point that it's public comment, this is not just general public comment, but
Specific.
you start
to the
calling
issue.
them to folks who signed up.
And staff can insert that in the agenda just to prompt you.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm a little rusty on Robert's rules, so,
No worries.
in training. Okay, Jim.
No, I have no, well, again, a philosophical question. Who brings recommendations for us to consider a parcel of land? Who does that? Do I do that? Do I do my own research? Do I call the staff and say, look, I think this is a historic piece of property and this is mine? And do you guys follow that up? Do y'all have the time and the assets to do you come back and say, hey, Jeff, no, it's not historic.
That's a good question.
Actually, what we will do, I think it could be both. Again, we will be able to bring maps up on the screen. So if you have an area that you would be interested in, the next meeting, you could say, hey, can you focus in on that? This is the parcel I'm looking at. This board would
Okay.
discuss it, that sort of thing. Or if we staff from our real estate department, they've been approached by, Mr. Smith that wants to sell, his property. That, we could then
can't
bring
afford
that
this.
to the board. And say, we have this opportunity, they want to sell this for X amount of dollars and bring it to the board, and then this board again would discuss. So it could be a two-way street. Or you can take the maps and just,
Find out what's
analyze
available in
and-
this area.
Yeah.
So yes and yes.
Well, and it's not necessarily even limited to that, right? I mean, anybody could,
Correct.
anybody off the street,
That's
anybody
right.
that sees an opportunity.
Sure,
Yeah, during the public comment period,
Right.
they could raise the question.
very fully.
Well, there's a lot of, I know some of my neighbors that don't want anything else ever built in this county ever. They're through. I mean, that, and so,
That's all over the county. We've had that.
is it- okay. So we don't need to look for work.
No.
But
It'll
again,
find
too,
us.
we do have some other departments that will be supporting this board. So if you, hone in on a piece of property, we can always send that over to our real estate department, and they can do some, checking for us. Because again, these will be willing sellers as well.
Sure.
So, unless the person wants to sell, then there's no use, continuing to pursue.
It would be great if the information that, we're essentially trying to base our decisions off of is made available really to the public, to everybody, so that the guy off the street can pull up that same map in high resolution, like we have the ability to do. I mean, I don't know that we need to contain that information, right? I mean, if it's available
Everything
to
we
us,
do
it's
here is
also
public
public.
record.
Yeah, yeah, so, I mean, as long as that information, I mean, I know we talked about like an FTP site. I mean, I don't know if that can be accessed by everybody, but
Well, the Lampboard used to have information on the county website. Is it still out there, do we know?
It's still there, but it's watered down, and it can be updated,
We
obviously.
have
So-
a page now.
Yeah, there is a
They
page.
brought us a page back. I don't know if y'all seen it.
So
Yeah,
we
it'd be
can
great.
start to
Yeah.
communicate to the public via the webpage.
Are there any issues right now that the county's aware of, or you guys are working on about a particular piece of land that has a lot of public interest in being set aside or purchased?
Not that I'm aware of.
Shorty, you know some, don't you?
Mhm.
So, yeah.
We'll bring them next.
I'm sure you have a good list.
JB.
Do we want to get to solicit from the public?
That's a good question.
In other words, if there's particularly larger landowners, if they have something they would like for the county to consider for acquisition, I don't want to open up a Pandora's box, but at the same time, there could be some gems out there that's, somebody, oh yeah, my mom or dad just died and we don't know what to do with this 100 acres. We'd love to sell it potentially. That's the kind of things that are really sometimes hard to find out about. Just a thought.
I think once we get our criteria and matrix
Well,
kind of formalized a little bit, we get a thumb on the pulse of what's happening at the legislature, and then we can be receptive to any of that. Yeah.
Last time, we did meetings around the county, like when we were working on the Greenway Blue Way Trails plan. And we did meetings around the county, and the LAMP members attended those. They were staff-driven meetings, but a lot of great ideas for the list came from those meetings. People would just show up and, oh, you're doing that. That's really cool. And, so there's so many opportunities for outreach, I think, that we can pursue.
yeah, I could tell you that I come across, I'm sure, Holly probably the same, where you contact a property owner and, they care about this county and they don't necessarily want to sell to a developer.
Right.
They would love to pass on their land in a different way, but they, obviously need a buyer for their land. And so, being open, I think, and being able to, not only focus on maybe things that we think may work, but invite those opportunities and those folks that say, hey, that's cool, the county has a program, let me show them my property because I'd love to see it preserved, or maybe I develop this section, but we preserve this section. I mean, I come in contact with those folks all the time.
Conservation easements are awesome.
Mhm.
Can be.
Well, and now the county has with the County Parks Foundation, one of the things that we were set up to do with the foundation was to be able to hold the easements if that comes as an option.
And Jan, you guys can accept easements as well, right?
We typically do not.
So it's usually the Water Management District, a land trust, and now our 501.
Correct.
Okay.
So any piece of property anywhere in this county could be considered for purchase or acquisition by this board, regardless of any of the criteria we got written down, any property.
Could be considered, yeah.
Could be, yeah.
Yeah, but the criteria,
There are
the criteria is
criteria
going to
for the
give
But the
the
criteria is
value.
going to,
Drive
Yeah,
it.
the criteria is going to give the value.
Yeah, but it may be an easy target.
Well,
Okay, but, yeah, okay.
Well, and that's the balance or that you were
Exactly.
speaking to is you want to have criteria to sort of direct
Choose
where
the
you're
targets.
headed. But at the same time, something may pop up and all of a sudden you don't want it to be so strict that you can't
Can't.
flex to go over here and acquire this piece of land
if
because
it's already got a 25,000 square foot building on it, you gotta look at a lot of remediation.
Yeah, and I think that's the beauty of this board, as I understand it. It is flexible.
Yeah.
And we can adjust.
Yep.
And we can, make emergency moves and that kind of thing, as long as we all agree.
But we do have brackets.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, and,
Sideboards, yeah.
starting criteria and a matrix, that's our homework assignment, the matrix, that type of thing.
And we're still subject to the board opinion. I mean, it's
Yeah.
a recommendation
Oh,
that
sure,
we're
it's just a
making, and then the
recommendation,
board is obviously taking it from there too, so that's something to keep in mind.
The county commission, you mean?
Yep.
Yes.
Right. Yep, yep. I would also like to make a motion,
You can.
Can.
okay,
You can
You
too.
would like to entertain the motion?
Jimmy, would you give me a motion that if there's some information out or terminology used that one of us doesn't understand, that somebody in the group will probably understand that terminology and can brief the group so that they understand, because there's some diversity in here of people that might not know, for example, what a wildlife corridor is. And so somebody can explain it, or somebody can go do some homework and explain it at the next meeting, or get an email out or something like that. But I think we all have to try to get ourselves educated together, because I don't know much about real estate. I'm a scientist, I don't know much about real estate, and there's probably realtors that don't understand much about science.
I would say that doesn't need to be a motion, that should just be a direction from you as the chair.
Right, I agree.
Well, I saw something, there's a whole list of definitions on a piece of one of these documents I got. I don't know.
All the acronyms and stuff.
Well, that certainly helps.
Yeah,
It's
Yeah.
actually in the ordinance.
it's in the ordinance.
Yes.
But I didn't see land corridor in there, I don't think.
But we can certainly, the expertise of this board
Okay,
is
well,
diverse.
in that
so-
case, what I'd like to say is if there's a term brought up or a concept brought up that one of us doesn't understand, then let's bring it to the attention of the group, and we'll get it so that everybody understands it.
Don't be
And
shy.
then I would like to advise for the public that if there's something that they're hearing that they don't understand, when we open it up for public comments at the end, that they raise that question. Mr. Chairman, what's a wildlife corridor? So that the public can understand some of these terms that we're using. Does that sound reasonable to the group?
Sure.
Absolutely.
I rest my case. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
No.
Yes,
Oh.
we do need to open it up for public
Oh,
comment.
okay. Is that my next thing?
Unless there's any further
Well, you
discussion.
had,
I was just-
yeah, public comment, board member reports, staff reports first.
I was also just going to quickly mention, when we talk about how we're going to find the land that may be available with someone that has apparently served on North Florida Land Trust, she may have some pretty good ideas of,
You probably got.
how to approach that process. So,
Yep,
not that we
that's
need to take the
Elizabeth.
time now, but.
I do. It would take up quite a bit of time. It's something I'd like to talk with the staff about. I think first, just to understand their capacity and capabilities in terms of what we might want to do, and then bring that back to the group. But yes, it is something I've done multiple times and have some experience with and have some recommendations. But
I think I missed something there in your question. Was it a list of properties or a list of criteria?
a way to go about strategically ranking properties and coming up with
Okay.
criteria and then evaluating those
Okay,
properties.
well, that's right in, that's our homework assignment.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay, so you'll be on the podium next time.
Sure, I got
Okay.
it.
And Michael, I would offer myself up to help with assessments, ecological assessments on properties. If somebody says,
Boots on the ground.
yeah, boots on the ground, if somebody says, wow, I've heard that this particular piece of property has high ecological value, then if we can get permission from that landowner for me to go out there, I only work part-time, so I can make time to go out there and check out properties. Because sometimes that has some value.
Okay, so if I go with him and we stand on that property and
We can't
discuss
talk.
it,
Don't do it.
it's not,
Don't
That's
go,
not to do it.
Yeah.
unfortunately.
go by
We'll take
himself.
photos and
Go with
report
staff.
back.
It stinks, but yeah, you're right.
We can visit it individually
But we can't,
and then bring the
you don't even
information
know where it
back.
is, but I'm not gonna tell you.
But it's to go visit, to educate yourself, and then you bring
Yeah,
it back to
right.
the board, and everybody shares that information here, and then it's public record, and everyone has access to it. It's kind
So
of
the
the
previous
concept.
board was disbanded because of sunshine violation, right?
No money.
No money. No money for how many years?
Public finance.
Well, I get the influence that, or I get the impression that there's a little bit of a lag because of the market conditions and kind of how it ebbs and flows, and so, you know, the market's been good for a little while, so it's like, hey, we can reopen the LAMP process. And so we're a little bit behind in terms of land acquisition.
Yeah, and I heard Commissioner Blocker say a month
To
ago.
get it established.
We collectively, we screwed up because when the market was not good is when you should have been buying, of
Yeah.
course.
It's
But there
always
was
the
no
case.
money.
Nobody.
Yep.
But I
I
mean,
want
that
to try and
was-
be opposite. But
Yeah.
that part's hard.
Any other board member discussion?
I have a question about public record.
Yes.
We're obviously right now getting notices via our personal emails.
Mhm.
So if there's a public records request, does that involve turning over our whole emails or just emails that have LAMP somehow in the?
Just emails that would pertain to the business of the Lampboard.
Unless they get your password in your desktop.
Okay, any other board comments? We want to open it up for public questions now?
Yes.
Any questions from the public?
Hi, Ed Slavin, edslavin.com, staugustgreen.com. I want to commend y'all for y'all's work. Faster than a speeding dump truck, the character of St. Johns County is being destroyed. And it stops here, folks, and I thank you for participating. Talked to Commissioner Dean about this for a long time, and he loves the idea that I've been proposing since 2008, 2006, and was first proposed by the mayor of St. Augustine in 1939, and that's the St. Augustine National Historical Park and National Seashore. And I wanted your all's email addresses and phone numbers because I wanted to make a presentation here today. But if I could do that at the next meeting, I'd like to make a presentation on the St. Augustine National Historical Park and National Seashore. It would be 140,000 acres in 2 counties, half of which Henry Dean and the late John Henry Atkinson Jr. acquired for water management. Now, we need to have these meetings in public at the BCC auditorium and have them televised. And I had written the county administrator and the county commission chair about that last week and never heard back. Transparency requires these meetings be in public, and ADA and COVID precautions require that we be able to not have to put our shoes on if we want to participate. School board, anybody can participate in the school board meeting every day, every time they have one, remotely using their computer. And I don't see any principled reason why every St. Johns County Commission meeting and committee meeting ought to be the same. But y'all are entitled to equal dignity with the other boards like the PZA, and you should be meeting in the commission auditorium. And folks know where that is. My cab driver got lost today. I didn't know where this place was. I've only been in this building once before. Kind of panicked. And I don't think most people knew this meeting was occurring. I was at a book club meeting at the Presbyterian Church by Zoom the other day, and nobody knew where this building was. Urban was here, but I don't think most people know where this building is. So we need to have these meetings in public, and we need to talk about how we can work and leverage with state agencies and federal agencies in terms of the land acquisition program. We need to have a presentation from Gordy Wilson and the National Park Service and a presentation from the Florida Park Service. We've got some of the most beautiful land and some of the most wonderful wildlife in the country. Henry Dean has always called it God's country. We're here to preserve and protect that. We appreciate the staff. We appreciate the newly elected officers and newly appointed board members. And if there's anything I can ever do to help, please let me know. But I really do need their email addresses. I need a copy of the ordinance and the book that they're given. That book, everything they get, needs to be on the website seasonably at least a week before each meeting. And need to have contact information for everybody. And I had asked Henry and I'd asked the new PR person to do a daggone press release back in November and December timeframe when y'all were appointed. Just let's not hide our light under a bushel basket, folks. This is a wonderful committee, very well qualified people. There ought to be a press release from the county staff, like I requested months ago, saying who y'all are and what your qualifications are and why you're here. Let's not hide it. Is that my buzzer?
Yes.
Oh, thank you. And the great thing about the county is there's little red lights and green lights and yellow lights, and they tell you when to shut up.
Jen, I didn't realize there was a time limit.
Yeah.
I was remiss in not saying you have X amount of time.
3 minutes unless you want to give me more time.
Okay.
You're always welcome to do that.
I got you. Okay, thank you. I do have a question for you. What is your capacity?
I'm a blogger, journalist. I've gone to county meetings. I'm the guy that helped get the landfill that the city of St. Augustine dumped in the lake cleaned up. And I've I guess we could say that I've had a piece of 60 or 70 public interest victories since 2005 when Bill Harris dumped a landfill in the lake and thought it was cute.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Slavin.
Sure. And I can get you the background. I provided testimony at every county legislative delegation meeting from 2006 on, every single year on the St. Augustine National Historical Park and National Seashore. And when I get your email addresses, I will send you the written testimony, about 20 or 30 pages, whatever it is. But there's a map that the GIS staff did of what the National Park and Seashore would look like. And there's some articles that I can also share. Thank you.
Okay, any other public comments?
I just want to say, I think this is wonderful. We've been waiting a long time for LAMP to get relighted again, and so thanks for all your time you're going to put in. I think it's really a good group, and going to have some real good success in saving our way that we have here in St. Johns County, so thank you.
Thank you. Okay, thank you. Jan or Ryan or Christine, as far as the public's request for our email addresses, how does that work?
Oh, let me make a suggestion. They need county email addresses so that they don't have to come up with their personal email addresses. And every email that you get needs to be your county email address, just like DCA. And official. Bless you. Excuse me.
That will be handled by staff.
Okay.
I don't know if they've thought about creating emails, county emails for you.
We do not.
Yeah, I don't need another email address.
Oh, you're, yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know the
Okay,
legality of
okay.
providing your own personal email address to the public.
Well, it becomes public record.
Well, then the way around it would be he makes the request of you and you email us and you do not seem stupid and we can either respond or not respond. Yes?
Well, the best way is if the county gives you an email address and it forwards to your individual personal email address. And then you respond to that way. It's easily solvable, anybody else does it.
Well, let's see where this goes by the next meeting.
Okay.
How's that?
That'll work.
Okay. Any other comments from the public?
So
Last time.
if I want to send my testimony in articles, the staff will send them to each of you. That's a lot of work for the staff. Plus, it's putting the staff in the way of my First Amendment protected activity. I just rather talk to
Okay,
you.
I understand. Okay, very good. In that case, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second? So be it, Shorty.
Oh, yeah, I moved it. Somebody else
Three of us moved it.
did.
Okay.
Whatever, yes.
We're all good.
Okay, February 8th,
February 8th,
2022, 1:30.
correct.
Same time, same place for the time being,
Yes.
unless we hear otherwise.
Oh, Lord.
Yes.
Need to be in the
Okay.
county auditorium.
Thank you.
It's disrespectful to the public to have it here. It needs to be in the county auditorium. It needs to be televised.